Welcome to the Valerie V Radio Show. I'm your host, Valerie Van de Zilver. Here we dive into the vibrant, dynamic world of living life fully as a mature adult. So whether you're an active mature adult facing challenges of aging or the child of aging parents, this show is your go-to source for information, inspiration, practical advice, and heartwarming stories. From overcoming challenges to celebrating incredible achievements, we bring you interviews with experts and extraordinary individuals who prove that life over 55 is anything but ordinary. So tune in, stay curious, and join us on this journey to living an interesting, fun, productive, and safe life. Welcome. Welcome to today's episode of the Valerie V Radio Show. I'm your host, Valerie Van de Zilver, and I am thrilled to introduce to you our special guests, Tammy and Gil Figueroa. Their story is one of resilience, reinvention, and heartwarming dedication. We first met Tammy as a young realtor assisting her mother-in-law, Virginia. Gil was building a successful career in construction and other ventures, but then together, eventually, they faced the challenges of becoming caretakers for Gil's parents, helping them transition from their family homes, but their experience didn't stop there. They also managed all the complexities of selling their family estate. In pursuit of a simpler life, Tammy and Gil downsized from their larger homes to a condo in beautiful Newport Beach, California. But eventually, seeking a more affordable and healthier lifestyle, they moved to Arizona. Not ready to fully retire, they joined forces to create the FIGS team. After the advice of their own clients, they pivoted to serving the senior market in their area. Today, Tammy and Gil will share their inspiring journey of semi-retirement, how they became heroes to their clients and popular figures in their community. And you should see their videos. Today, the story of reinvention after retirement is both heartwarming and insightful. They'll provide valuable tips on preparing for out-of-state moves, downsizing, and living a full life as mature adults. Stay tuned as we dive into their experiences and learn how you too can embrace change and thrive in your golden years. Welcome, Tammy and Gil.
Thank you, Valerie, for having us.
Hi, Valerie.
So welcome. You're so welcome. Tammy and Gil are very important to me. And so when thinking about who to invite onto our show, they, of course, were number one on my list. Let's start out by sharing a bit about your background and how you first got into your respective careers in real estate and construction. Because I met you after you had already started. I never really knew how you got started then.
Right. Well, first of all, Gil spent 20 years with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, as his father was. So he kind of followed him into that law enforcement career. And then, of course, my mother-in-law, Virginia, was a very active and wonderfully busy real estate agent in Orange County in the Huntington Beach, Fountain Valley area. So when we got married, she said, at some point, I think you should get into real estate because that would be a great career for you. Wait till your kids get a little bit older, this, that, and the other. So I actually did do that. And Gil was working for the county. And we were going through all of those interesting things with children and him doing shift work. And I loved watching Virginia do her thing because she was fabulous. She made work fun. Her clients loved her. And so when it came time for me to get my real estate license, she said, come to work for me because I'm not going to do this much longer. And I need you to take the torch, because we had a whole list of past clients that were all deputy sheriffs and, moving from house to house and sometimes spouse to spouse. So it's kind of the way it worked. So that's kind of how that got started.
I'm not sure I heard those stories, but I heard the house part.
Well, women see a man in a uniform and it's like hubba hubba and, can cause a little trouble. So anyway, we didn't cause any trouble. We were good. And that's how I met you.
Yes.
I was working at a real estate, privately owned real estate office in Fountain Valley called Pace Setter Real Estate.
That's right.
And my mother-in-law worked there and brought me on. And the broker, Ted Brewer, was amazing. Loved him.
Yes.
And at that time, you were doing loans.
I was only in the mortgage business, right?
Right. And you came in, you called on the office, and that's kind of how we met.
Right. Yes.
And then strangely enough, our paths crossed and went diagonal several times, was very bizarre. And now look here we are now, 30 some odd years later.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. And our paths have crossed in different ways, not especially related to selling houses.
No, not at all.
No.
Not at all. We had gone through some pretty tough stuff with Gil's parents as they were aging. And we were really kind of forced. In fact, Gil took the whole reins of that, mostly in, finding out how are we going to continue to care for them, keep them in their own house as long as we could, because that was where they were going to be, most comfortable. And at this time, they were in their late 70s, early 80s.
Yes. Yeah. The one thing that I learned that helped us out a lot was we found a young lady that did elder care, and she knew how to move people to what facility they belonged at, what insurance to use, and she gave us all that information. I have given her name to several people, and she continues to do that. What's really interesting about that is, since we moved here to Arizona, I've been involved in a couple of different groups, and one of those groups, I met another lady that does that same business here, and I have used her for different clients and friends that have also had that going on. So you got to keep in mind there's a lot of people out there to help you navigate those kind of things. It wasn't just us having to go blindly. We had a lot of help.
Yep, and that's true. We went through that when you referred me to that lady for my dad was the same. We were going through the same thing.
Exactly.
So what are some of the challenges and the lessons besides that one that you learned when you were going through that with both of your parents? Because you talked just a few minutes ago about how they stayed in their home for a while, but then at some point, then you decided it wasn't the right thing to do. And how did, of all those things that you went through, and then one spouse died before the other, right?
Yes, exactly. So what ended up happening was Gil's mother, Virginia, had been on vacation with her daughter in Louisiana, right? New Orleans. She had a massive stroke, massive. And so she was there in Louisiana for a few weeks, unconscious, and then finally got her airlifted back to California. So during the course of all of that, there were so many things that happened, but then we were like, okay, are we bringing her home? Is she going to go into a long-term care facility? We certainly took the advice of doctors and whatnot, but what ended up happening is she was actually doing quite well. And so we moved her back home with her husband down the street from us. And that was another wonderful thing. They lived 3 doors down, so it was easy for us to be hands-on. But there was a turning point where we had to decide, is it time to move her into an assisted living place, or do we keep her home? Explain what happened.
Well, because of my dad's past employment and his personality, he was a take charge kind of person, and he was adamant about staying home and taking care of my mom. And before he did that, I had a conversation with him. I said, look, one of the reasons that my mom was in the position she was she cared for her aunt and uncle who lived in LA, and she drove to take care of them 2 to 3 times a week. And my dad said, well, I want to take care of her. And I said, well, I don't want you to develop a problem taking care of them physically.
We didn't want to lose them both, in other words.
So he decided he wanted to watch her. And then after about a year, he came to us and he said, I can't do this. And we said, well, we knew that. So we found somebody to come in and 5 days a week for 8 hours a day that helped him with her until it just got to be to the point where she was just needed too much care. And I was able to convince my dad that it was time to move her to a place that she could be cared for. And I told him the huge benefits of that was he could spend time with her that was just him spending time with her, not him taking care of her.
Right.
And it made a huge difference. And it was a big burden lifted off his shoulders. He never admitted it, but I could tell by the way that he handled it.
Now, there are many. Now we have the internet, so you can Google all this stuff. But this all took place back in 2000, about 2000, 2001, 2002. And so there are websites out there. The one we used was care.com, and you can go on there and you can get as much care or as little amount of care as you need. And you can progress it, and when they need more care. But that was really the defining moment when we knew this was taking its toll on his dad in a not a good way, that it was time to move her to assisted living. And it wasn't easy. She was not happy. There was a lot of guilt there on our part and on his part too. But, ultimately, it really was the best thing for her and for him.
So when she came home from Louisiana, she lived in the house in Huntington Beach then with him for a year and a half?
Yeah,
about a year and a half.
Yep, in the corner house.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And we lived down the street. So they were in separate bedrooms at that point because she did need care getting in and out of bed and having them together in the same room. He would have gotten no sleep whatsoever. As it turned out, she did what many stroke victims do when kind of dementia starts setting in. And she had the sundowners, and she was confusing day and night. And so he was up all night with her. He was trying to sleep. It was just not a good situation. So yeah, we kept her home for a year and a half, and then she was in assisted living for about 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then she passed away.
So that gave him an opportunity to go there and spend quality time with her, so to speak, rather than all the stress on him.
Yes. And that was the biggest part of the selling point of telling him that was the best thing to have happen. Is I told him, I said, I want you to spend time with her, that you have to do nothing but dote on her and not have to worry about washing things and cleaning up and cooking. And it turned out to be one of the best decisions he made.
Yeah.
And certainly the guilt trip is one that we often go on and is difficult for a lot of us as children and spouses to have to deal with.
Yes.
Having to put them in another place. And
absolutely, because you want to take care of your mom and dad. You want them, just like us raising our children. We want to make sure that they have just the happiest, carefree life that we can provide for them. And as we're watching our parents age, we want to make sure that they're having a really productive and happy time in retirement and moving through some of these, health issues and things that life happens to take us down those roads. So you do feel guilt, because everybody has an idea in their head how retirement's going to look and what it's going to be like to take care of your mom and dad. And it's always a rosier picture, at least for me. And so when you're slapped in the face with like a dead fish and it's like, what are we supposed to do with this? You just make things happen, and you do the best you can do and walk away. Now, looking back on it, we did the absolute best. I'm so proud of what we did for Gil's parents because most importantly, we were there, and we were there every day. So,
and you were a lifesaver for me. And when I went through a similar situation with my dad, I had to find a place for my dad to go immediately. I called you and said, Tammy, what did you do? And what should I do? I had no idea what to do. And you directed me to someone then who was just a lifesaver for our families. So your experience was helpful to me definitely at that time. And I'm sure you've shared it with other people.
we have, and that's why it's so important to talk about this stuff, that your show. I mean, there are people out there that are going to listen to this and go, what? There are places we can call that people know about this stuff? Absolutely. There are advocates out there with almost every care home, active seniors living that have people that they work with that they can provide these information. And information really is very powerful at this stage of our lives.
Talking about assisted living communities, are there any lessons that you learned about that in choosing one over another? I know there are a lot more that exist now than maybe existed at that time when you were looking for Virginia, but anything specific that you would say, we are glad we picked one for this, or we didn't know we should have asked that?
I think more than even Virginia going into assisted living, because she had so many health issues as a result of the stroke. She needed a lot of medical attention. When Gil's dad was then aging out and we knew we had to make some changes with him, and we were looking for, an active senior living place. He was very, very active. I mean, he rode his bike 10 miles 3 times a week, and he was very active, liked to work out, very social. But he was also getting to that place where he shouldn't, like he forgot something in the oven one night. Mm-hmm. And so, those kinds of things. But I think the one thing when we were interviewing places was to be able to find a place that transitioned from very active senior, still driving, etc., to, as they progress in their life span and things change, we were able to keep him in the same facility but transfer him to a different area, so he didn't have to start all over again with a whole new place and all new friends and that kind of thing. So if anybody has the option to be able to do that with an active senior, it just makes it easier on them down the road. But do your research. We went to some places that were so highly touted, and we walked in there and it was like, oh, this is not happening. There's no way we're doing this. And and there are all price points, and it doesn't mean that the lowest price point or the cheapest is going to provide the worst care. That's not true. That is not true. Do your homework. And like you had mentioned earlier, there are many, many more care facilities now than there have ever been available because, it's needed. It's needed.
Yeah. One of the things that was really beneficial for us was when my dad was about 45 years old to 50, he started what was that insurance he bought?
Yeah, he got a senior care, and he bought aftercare insurance.
Oh,
so
and by the
supplemental.
By the time we needed to put him in a full-time care place, he had his own apartment in this place. It covered the entire bill. We didn't have to liquidate any assets or anything like that. So anybody that is concerned about how to take care of themselves when they get older, look into it. If you're anywhere between 45 and 50, look into an insurance plan that will cover you. And they had a certain amount of money that they would pay every month as long as it fit what the insurance company,
the standards,
and They didn't argue a bit. We would pay the bill. They would send us a check.
Well, that's certainly good advice.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, when we didn't even know he had it until it came time. And he said, "Hey, by the way, I've got this insurance policy." And we're like, "What is that?" And so Gil's right. Anybody in their 40s to 50s, look into that, because then your children aren't going crazy trying to figure out how to get you, the best care on a certain amount of money. So it was very advantageous for us.
And one thing certainly that's different than we talked about a little bit earlier is there are 10,000 people every day that are becoming 65. And so those of us who are our age are going to live a lot longer than most of our parents did. And this is going to be a bigger need and a bigger issue, definitely. When we were 45,
absolutely.
55, we didn't think we were going to live to be 105. My mom was 104, right? So
Right.
we never thought that would happen. So we have to be more prepared, I think, is the moral of the story.
Yes, I think that's the key to the whole thing, is just be prepared as much as you possibly can. So learn from your friends, learn from family members, from programs like this. But it's definitely not something to be put off to the very end, because then you're like shell-shocked like we were. And it's like, what do you mean she had a massive stroke? This woman was bigger than life. I mean, she was what? And, but it just, life happens.
And then, as you mentioned, you're in a position where you have to make crisis-driven decisions rather than information-driven decisions.
Yes, big difference.
Yes, big difference. So, now where we live now, we're here in Arizona, and we live in a beautiful community that is touted as an over 55 community. But the truth of the matter is, out of 2,000 homes, there's really only maybe 500 homes, two small sections.
Not even that many homes.
That are over 55. But this is like an active, oh my goodness, I can't keep up with some of the 70 and 80-year-olds here. So we are living longer and more productive lives and active, and we're keeping our brains active and our bodies active. So I think that 20 years ago, anybody in their 70s was kind of looked at as old. We're here, we're kind of going, wow, they are so young still. So, and look at you, my goodness.
That's true. So let's talk about that. You downsized from, you had the two houses in Huntington Beach, your father, Gil's dad's, and your house, and you liquidated those, and you moved to a condominium in Newport Beach. And then you moved again to a 55 plus community in Arizona. How did you handle those transitions? How did you make those adjustments?
Ugh, not well. Well, leaving. To back up just real briefly, Gil's dad's home, which was down the street from where we were living, when we finally, prior to putting him into an active living home, we moved him in with us. I don't recommend it. Really, it's not something I recommend. Very challenging. But in the meantime, we saw this asset that he had, his home there. And we're like, what are we going to do with it? Should we rent it out? Do we sell it? We talked to advisors and financial people and accountants, et cetera. And we ended up turning that house into a vacation rental, which you are very well of, because we hired you to take care of that for us. And it was a way for us to really sock away some money that we were going to need for their care after. So that happened. And then we were in our big house, the big 5-bedroom home in Huntington Beach down the street. And we were working primarily in Newport Beach and Costa Mesa. And we were members at Newport Beach Country Club at the time for golf. And we were just driving back and forth from Huntington to Newport every day. And everybody thinks, well, what's the big deal? Well, it was like a half an hour one way with traffic and whatever. So we thought, wouldn't it be fun to rent something in Newport for a year and see if we like it? Of course, why wouldn't we like it? But so we put tenants in our big home. And we rented a townhome in Corona del Mar, and we ended up living there for almost 8 years.
Yeah.
And loved it. Loved every minute of it. We walked everywhere. It was close to work, close to our friends and the club. And then it got to where I didn't want to be in a rental anymore. I wanted my own house. I wanted to paint the kitchen. I wanted to change the bathroom, that kind of thing. We didn't want to go back to Huntington. That was like moving backwards. And we didn't need that big house. So we thought, what are we going to do? Well, at that time, Gil had been diagnosed with some cancer that was treatable. And, we went through all of that process. And my sister, who lives here in Chandler, Arizona, she said, you know what, Tam, why don't you guys think about retiring? Come out here, find a place with a golf course, and just semi-retire and enjoy life. And if anything happens, you have a lot of family here to take care of you. It took us a year to really come to terms with that, don't you think?
Mhm.
Well, we'd been in Southern California all of our life, and we have family and kids, and it was what was, what the scariest part was, the fear of the unknown. And what's it going to be like? What if we don't like it? Then we can't, are we going to move back? But we did it. And I would say we're living our best life now.
Well, when I had my construction company in Costa Mesa, Tammy actually ran the office, because at that time, right after 2008, things got slow for real estate, and she came in and she was running my office there. So we had the experience of working together, and it seemed to work out very well. It worked out great for me. She might have a little different opinion.
Yeah.
But,
And that was the fencing company also, correct?
Yes.
Which I might mention, we have a fence that was built by your company.
Oh,
Yes.
good. It's still standing.
Yes, it is.
I'm very impressed. Good to know.
So,
Of course.
so when we decided to move out here, I knew somebody that was in land development, and I was going to get a job as a part-time project manager. And Tammy was going to do a little real estate here and there. Well, as it turned out, it's real hot in the summer. And I thought, why do I want to go? The place we came out here to lease was on a golf course, the golf course that we joined. So I thought, there's a lot of homes here. I should think about getting my real estate license. So I decided to get my real estate license.
I was not a fan.
Tammy was not a fan. And it has since been a great decision because of what we've been able to do with that in this community.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Let's talk about it. You both decided to come out of semi-retirement, I would say, or no retirement at all. I'm not quite sure where you were when you came here. And you created the FIGS team. What inspired you then to focus on the senior market in your area, and what's that experience been like?
Well, the community we live in, like I had mentioned before, very active. We've met some great people here. Gil got involved with a couple of different golf groups here, and so did I. And real estate is all I've known. I was a licensed real estate agent in California for 33 years and came here, and I thought I'll just get my license and we'll do a few friends and family and, golf and just have fun, travel, whatever.
And golf and travel.
Yeah, right. So Gil said, hey, I'm not going to take that other job. I think I'll get my real estate license. And I was like, why? Why would you do that? Now we're going to have to work. Now we have to work. He's like, it'll be great. It'll be fun. Well, we're social people. We're very social people.
Right.
And so what ended up happening was we went to a company called Keller Williams Integrity First here in Arizona. And we needed to figure out how things were different here in the real estate market than they were in California, right? I had no idea what we were doing here. I couldn't have found my way out of a paper bag if you'd asked me to. I didn't know where Phoenix was. And so we decided to join a team. And so we did. There was a gal that was looking for people to join her team. And we said, let's just do this for a year or two until we figure this out. Well, as you know, Valerie, selling real estate, it doesn't matter if you're in Alaska or California or Arizona. It's all the same thing. You're just dealing with different houses and different people. So it didn't take us long to realize that we were a team. The two of us we are a team.
Always have been.
Always have been. And so when we decided to do the Figs team, Gil had a license plate that we had on our old Suburban back when our kids were little and we were schlepping them around to baseball and soccer and all that. And the license plate was for my Figs. Okay, that was his license, his personalized plate. So when we started talking about it here, we said, well, clearly we're the Figs. And that's how we would talk to people here. We're the Figs, and I guess we're the Figs team. So we got the website for it and the domain name, and we left the other team. And now we are a team, and we have 3 other people on our team. And it really kind of took off here like wildfire. We are not working part-time. We are absolute full-time real estate agents, but we're having a ball because it's all right here in our backyard. I told you earlier, we travel by golf cart here, and we work well together, and we both love people, and it's really our forte. And back when we were living in Newport Beach, quick story, I met a gal who called me out of the blue, and she said, hey, my mom is 85, lives in the big house up in Harbor Ridge, and we need to move her. She's not well. Will you sell the house? And so I met with them, the 2 sisters, and took that listing. And then in the meantime, another friend of mine who was a friend, she started out as a client, who had lost her husband, but she was in her early 60s, and she needed to make a new life. She'd been married for, 45 years and didn't know what to do. And I spent a lot of time with her, and eventually we did find her a beautiful place to live. And I was telling her about this woman, and she said, you know what? You're so good dealing with older people because you make them feel calm. You're not pressuring. You're merely giving them solid advice and then asking them to check that advice with their family and professionals, and that you will do whatever they need done to get them on to where they need to go. And I kind of took that to heart a bit. But once we moved here, we met so many clients here who actually lived in other states. And now they were wanting to sell their properties here and move back to where they came from, because that's where their children and grandchildren were. And that's who they wanted to be around as they were aging. And so it kind of became sort of a little niche for us here. Mm-hmm. I don't know that it's a niche. We just do what we do, and people are happy with that service. And it gives us pleasure to be able to sit down with the client and say, I know what you're going through. This is hard. These are difficult times. Let us help you make it as seamless as we possibly can. So that's kind of how we became the Figs team. And here we are.
And you still have the license plate?
We do. Gil's license plate is the same for my Figs, and mine is Figs RE, Figs Real Estate.
Oh, great. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah. Yep,
right.
Exactly. Yep.
Great. So how is your experience in downsizing and caretaking? How's that influence the way that you assist your clients and the other people that are going through similar transitions?
Well, when we were taking care of Gil's father, had lived a long life and was very productive and a very proud man from where he had come from. He came from Eloy, Arizona, and had, made his way out to California. He had been a deputy sheriff for Los Angeles County for over 30 years, and he was good at his job, and he was very well respected. it's difficult when you have someone like that who is now becoming vulnerable. They know they need help. They don't want to ask for it. And we became very, very good at listening to him talk, and in hearing what he was saying to us, we could literally mirror that tone of voice, that calm in him. I remember him saying a lot, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. And it became very easy for us to say, you don't have to worry about what you're going to do. We are here to take care of you. We're going to take care of it. What do you need? We'll take care of it. And that's kind of what we say at every appointment with our clients. What do you need? We'll take care of it. I just went today and took back all of the cable boxes from a house here in Encantera, a woman who she's in her 80s, and her son and daughter-in-law live in California. So they're only here every few weeks, and they moved her to an active senior living place, and she loves it. And they said, I don't know what we're going to do with all this stuff. And I said, we do. Let me have it. Call Cox, tell them you're canceling the service. And I know that Cox has a contract with UPS. We'll just take everything over to UPS. They'll scan it. They'll take it back. Done. And I did that today, and I emailed her copies of all the receipts. But yeah, they don't need to be dealing with that stupid stuff when they're dealing with a move like that. So that's kind of what we do, and we enjoy it.
Yeah, the other important thing is when we sit down with clients, we let them know we know what we do know, but we also know what we don't know. And the things that we don't know, before we give them an answer, we tell them we're going to find out about this and get back to you. And we actually research and figure out what it is they need to know and give them a solid answer, and to give them the guidance that they want to make a decision with. So you can never be too proud to say, oh yeah, I don't know something. That just shows your arrogance, and it doesn't help anybody, because you may be steering them the wrong way.
Yeah. And especially steering them the wrong way. For every family is so different, and every family dynamic is different. One of the things I'm curious about is, what do you think are some of the misconceptions about moving to a 55, what we'll call a 55 plus community, which is like Encantera, correct? What are some of the mistakes that people make, and how could those be avoided?
Well, they need to examine their lifestyle before they make a move. People don't move to an over 55 community because they don't like kids. That's not it. They want to be able to meet other people that are in the same stages of life as them, right? They still have a lot of life left to live. They still are active and ride bikes and do pottery. And so it's about research. What is your lifestyle like? And you want to seek out an over 55 community that caters to people that are looking for what makes you happy, right? You want to find out, do you enjoy golf? You don't? Then maybe you don't want to be in a golf community. Oh, you like pickleball? Find a community that's got pickleball. You want a reading club? A book club? A cooking club? There have got to be over 30 different clubs here. But I would say anybody looking to move to an over 55 community, here's what you're going to get. You're going to get a nice house. You're going to get a smaller yard. You can still take care of your yard and your gardening if that's something you enjoy. But a lot of people in this stage of life don't want to be bending over pulling weeds, for 2 hours every week. So research what active lifestyle communities are around you. Take the time to go look. Take the time to go to the restaurant and at the community, talk to other residents who live there. What do you love about it? What don't you love about it? So it's like anything else. You research it, but here it's called the good life. And what is the good life? It's different for everybody. So again, your research is critical. Go online. Everybody's got reviews everywhere. And if people are unhappy, believe me, they will let you know.
Yep, that's true. That's true. I think that I hear stories that sometimes people think that when they move there, that everything's included. And then they find out, I've heard some stories that, well, when I go there, the special dinners and all these other events they have are maybe a little bit added fee. And they didn't know that. But how do they think the association will pay for those things, right?
Right.
That's one of the things also they need to research.
Right. And when you're going to research those communities that you're interested in, make an appointment to talk to the membership person. I know here there are many over 55 communities here in the East Valley that they will sit down and spend time with you and make sure you completely understand everything about the community and what the fees are and what the cost is going to be. And are you going to rent? Are you going to buy? Find out what are those resale values. It's research. And we have a lot of time, more time in our 60s than we did in our 40s.
That's correct. That's for sure. So can you share some stories, some memories of some of the clients that you've helped and how your unique approach experience was different than maybe what somebody else might do and how you made a difference in their lives? I'm sure that you've met a lot of people that
we have
need your help.
Because of our faith, we are more guided with things that are supposed to be are going to be eventually. We had one client that we sold their house in 2 days, and they were absolutely excited. The one problem they didn't realize was when they told us how long they wanted their escrow to be, she cut herself short by about 2.5, 3 weeks.
Mm.
So she completely was just on edge,
frazzled
for a week and a half because of that. And as it turns out, for some reason, we're still not sure why, the buyers backed out.
Mm-hmm.
And so once the buyers backed out, we sat them down and said, look, this place is going to sell again. It sold once in one day. You're going to sell to somebody, but we want you to make sure you write down when it is you want to leave here. Make sure that's a hard number and think about it. It's not a number for us. It's a number for you. Well, it turns out we had an open house, and a man that had just bought across the street walked in, fell in love with the house because the house he bought, he wanted to do what this house already had.
Fix it up.
So he said, I'm going to have my kids take over my house, and I'm buying this one.
And he did.
Yeah, and he agreed to everything, the escrow, everything,
the timing,
and it was seamless for the people that we were selling it for. And they said, we cannot believe that it worked out this way. Thank you so very much. He said, well, it wasn't us. You told us what you wanted, and we just worked backwards from there.
Yeah.
So
they ended up moving. They moved back to Montana because their children and grandkids were there. And rather than flying back and forth 6-7 times a year, they decided to go ahead and move back to Montana. And she has sent pictures with, her and the grandchildren and her husband on his new golf course. And I absolutely love it. So, we've had some interesting stories. Definitely. We had another lady who wanted to sell her place here, and she was very kind of secretive and just want to get it sold, and here's the price. And we sold that house in a week. And she said, but anytime you're coming in to show this house, you can't let anybody go in the second bedroom. Okay, why not? There's nothing in there but boxes. Those are my boxes, and they have all my private stuff, and nobody can go in there. It's like, okay, look, somebody is going to go in, and they're going to want to see how big the room is, etc. Well, you have to go in there with them. Okay, so we did that, and they ended up buying the house, and it just turned out that it was like 20 years of tax returns and stuff that was in those boxes. But boy, we had a lot of fun trying to figure out, what do you think is in ours file cabinet?
Bedroom, absolutely.
Yeah.
Funny.
And then she and her husband relocated to Mexico. They're living their best life in Mexico. Who knew?
So you find people in your area who actually they make 2 moves, that yours isn't their final move.
That's right. Most of them, it is not their final move. Most of them who buy here, they're second homes, and they're here for the season because they've come from Minnesota or the Dakotas or Colorado, Montana, and it's cold in the winter. So they'll come here and spend 6 months out of the year and then they pack up and they go home for the summer months, get out of the heat here, and they, so, and that is kind of a nice thing to be able to see seniors take advantage of the seasons in two different places. They're retired, they've got their retirement money, and they're able to live in two different states.
Yeah,
So good for them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Here's another thing that's very unusual about this neighborhood. We have people here that are in their third and fourth home in this development.
Really?
After they've been here for a while, the features of the home they bought are not exactly what they wanted, so they buy another one. Some of them didn't have a whole lot of friends where they lived before, and they moved here. And it's incredible how many friends you end up having here. So they needed a bigger house to entertain. They said, we have a dinner party and we don't have room for 12 people. So a house had to be found for them that they could entertain 12 people or more in. So that is very unusual. And I'm sure it happens in other neighborhoods. This is the first neighborhood I've ever heard of that's happened, that people buy 2 and 3 different houses and not keep them, to actually sell, move into the next one, and sell the other one.
So along with that same thing, of the people who come to you or who move there, who are moving out from another state to you, do you find that some of them, when they get there, they say, oh, I didn't know it was going to be like this? Or what advice would you give to someone that's coming from another state and wants to move into your area, or even as your kids, anybody who's moving to another state? Any suggestions that you might have?
Rent for 3 months.
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah, come and rent. See if you're going to like it. And I don't know anybody who's moved here, rented, and then said they didn't like it. Look, the toughest part about Arizona, which is a gorgeous state, by the way, are those 3 months during summertime, and it is hot. So if you're retired and you have the means and you can travel during the summer, like we have many people in here that they're gone all summer long, they're traveling and whatnot. But those other 8 months out of the year here in Arizona are spectacular. The weather's beautiful. People are lovely. It's been a good move for us, Valerie. You want to come?
So my husband's sitting here next to me. You might have to talk us into it.
Come visit. We've got 2 guest rooms. You may come, and
we certainly will do that. We'll rent for 3 months. How about that?
There we go.
The other interesting thing about this place is, because we have people that are either from Canada or all across the United States in colder climates during the winter, people will meet people here and they'll go stay with them during the summer when it gets real hot. We've got friends here that about 3.5 hours from where we live in Cantera up is either Sholo or Flagstaff or Prescott.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the people who live here have summer homes that they go to up there.
Mm-hmm. And they'll spend the summer in the mountains because it's 20 degrees cooler. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds.
Sounds like it.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds pretty inviting.
I know.
We'll have to check it out.
Okay, come see us.
What are some of the challenges that you see of the adult children of aging parents? They either want to help and they don't know how, or they live far away and they can't get there to help, or the parents and the children don't always agree on the same course of action. Do you ever see that in any of your transactions or your families?
We do. And the hardest part is when you have older parents who have moved here in their 60s and they've lived their best life and they're now in their 80s and they need help. And the kids are out of town. They're not here. That is probably one of the biggest challenges, is how are the kids going to provide any help when they live so far away? And that is when you start, seeking out providers. I would say if you have if you're younger and you have parents that are considering moving out of state to have their fun retirement life, have a conversation with them. We want you to have your best life. What would you like to see happen when you've been there for 20 years and you're not really able to enjoy the facilities of where you're living now? You wish you were closer to us. We wish you were closer. Would you move back? Or what other kind of plan do you see working out for you, mom and dad? Have the conversation, because, the more information you can get from your own parents with their desires is just going to set you up to make a plan better when that time actually comes.
And some people actually think about that. There's a guy I play golf with. It's from California. He has a home in Mission Viejo. His daughter lives at Dana Point. And he says, my daughter will not let me sell my home in Mission Viejo, because when I need to be taken care of, she's not moving here. So she said, don't sell this house. So we can just move you back here, and it's just like you never left. So there are some people who give some thought to that. The group of people that I feel sorry for are siblings that don't see eye to eye for a lot of different reasons. Maybe they've had some long-term memories from when they were growing up, how they didn't get along. I had some of that with my sisters, but because of the way my dad was, it fell to me to take care of everything. So my sisters had to deal with that whether they liked it or not. But it is something you have to think about what's going to happen when you get to be 80. I think about it now when I get up on a ladder. Am I going to be able to do this next year? So,
yeah, the family dynamics plays a huge role, and it's not a one size fits all.
No.
So you really do need to take stock of what the family dynamics is, and again, have the conversation with your parents, because the last thing we wanted to do was do stuff that was going to be workable for us, but make them unhappy.
Right.
So, and you have elderly people who don't have children. What are they supposed to do?
Right.
Who are they supposed to call on? So I think it's just so many things can be alleviated by an earlier conversation in anticipation of what may come.
That's usually the case, isn't it? Communication solves a lot of problems. We thank you so much for your time today. It's been such a privilege to have you and sharing your stories, and some of which I knew, some of which I didn't. And I know that our listening audience is going to get a lot of this. And be sure that we're going to post your information, but be sure also that you provide your phone number and your email address. So anyone who's interested in moving to either is in Arizona or would love to move there, we sure want them to reach out to you.
Oh, thank you, Valerie. And it's so good to see you and talk to you again. Thanks so much for having us on. And we wish you all the best with your new radio.
You too. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.